Test one, test 456. It appears reconnection is okay. Test 456. The stream will resume in about 5 to 15 minutes. Hi there. I'm John McMaster here in my Silicon Valley garage super lab.
Hey everybody, and I'm Yusuf. I'm also in my garage, kind of mediocre lab, but I have a pretty cool demo for you today. So it's been a while since we've done one of these live streams, but there's a good reason for it. We've been hard at work, building some pretty awesome products, and I'd like to showcase one of those for you today. It's going to be our A2 model inspection scope. This is our premium version that we have, and you'll see some of the features that make it, stand out about the rest. So if you're ready, we can jump right into it. John, do you have any questions before we start?
No, I think that sounds great. I was trying to make you bigger, but that's okay. I think we can see your screen at least.
Hey, I'm big enough. Okay, so today I'm going to scan a vintage postage stamp from my grandfather's collection. I don't know if you can see this, but there are some really pretty stamps. These are some Australian stamps that we have here, and they're quite beautiful. And I wanted to take some really nice high resolution images and share them with the world. Let everyone have a look at these. So that's what we're going to do today. As you can see, this album is pretty large, and unfortunately the stamps are mounted onto them, so I cannot take them off to image. And this is where one of the scope's better features comes into play. The bed, the imaging bed is actually pretty large and can fit this whole book in one shot. So let me go ahead and place this in right here. I'm going to take this little plastic 3D printed frame that I made and put it around the stand. Now, this is just mainly a little, paperweight kind of thing, and I'll get back to this once we have started the scan. Just remind me about that. So I'm just going to put this around the stand. It's a little weight, it holds on the paper. This paper is pretty old, a little wavy. So, we want to keep it nice and flat. And if you want to jump to my screen share, I have Scope open right now. That's our open source imaging software that all our scopes use. And what I'm going to do, and this is basically all I've done is opened up the program. I've not set anything up. It's pretty much ready to go. So, John, can you see my screen?
I can, and maybe you can start by just giving an overview of this GUI in its current incarnation, and just tell people what they're looking at, because there's a lot going on here, and it might be a little bit overwhelming at first.
Oh yeah, definitely. And also a little bit of a note. I'm using a slightly older version, and we have made a few improvements to this since then. So if you go ahead and pick up the software now or in the future, it's going to be a lot nicer. Like, we have not only some UI changes, but also a lot of advanced features that we've added to it. To go ahead and introduce you, up top here, you see a little drop-down box. It allows us to choose the objective lens that is currently installed. Right now for the inspection scope, we only have this 1x setting, so there's nothing else to choose. Moving on from that, if you look at my pointer, I don't know if you can see it, but we have two windows. So this window is kind of the view from the camera right now. And this is an enlarged view that's helping us tune the focus of the image. So that's just like a super close-up image that's helping us tune, make sure everything's nice and sharp. And from there down, we have this section, which is kind of our movement section, and also where we set the boundaries of the scan that we want to do. We have two modes, which is a 2-point and a 3-point mode. The 2 points just basically you take 2 points of a rectangle, and that's your scan area. 3-point is a little more advanced. It allows you to do planar adjustments for subject that is not level compared to the camera. And I think this talk is just going to be a really quick intro to the whole pipeline. So hopefully we'll have a lot more quick videos on different aspects of what this can do, and there are a ton of cool things that this software can do. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to define those 2 points around the stand. So we can go into jog mode, which I'm in right now, and I'm just going to move it around. I'm going to move it to, let's say, the bottom left, which is right here.
And maybe to clarify, so right now, I believe you were using keyboard controls to do this, but we also have some joystick and other controls we're experimenting with, right?
Yes, yes. So we have joystick support right now. It is very early and kind of experimental, but I've used it and it works great. Right now, just to save space on my very cluttered desk, I don't have that set up.
Perfect. Just wanted to clarify that.
Right. And as I said, like, this is kind of an older version. There's a lot more cool stuff that's been added since this version. So what I did right now is I just set the lower left quadrant of the stand.
Yeah.
And I'm going to go ahead. Sorry.
And maybe also just for context, so the objective at a high level that we want to do right now, right, is we want to take a very high resolution image of this postage stamp, and we can't cover the entire postage stamp in one camera frame, right? So we're going to take a panorama of lots of little small images. And to do that, we have to give it kind of a polygon of where to capture. So in order to do that, we're going to do very simple, which is the rectangle. And so that means he's going to set the upper right-hand corner there and the upper left, and that gives us a polygon that we're going to image over. Does that sound about right?
Yes, sorry, you said the lower left and upper right.
Lower left and upper right. Yes. So this is like our imaging area region of interest.
Right. And for postage stamps, it works great. They're pretty rectangular, so no problems. If you have something that's not rectangular, you just give it a margin around that and you still get a nice pretty image. So
and then
yeah, sorry.
Oh, let's say, and then the other bit, which out of scope for this video, you touched on a little bit. If it was something more advanced that wasn't flat like this, like we'll talk about other 3D objects later. There's more advanced imaging modes that we'll cover in a future video that handle those better.
Right, and as we start the scan, we can touch into some of those things. The scan's going to take about 5 minutes, so enough time to talk about different aspects of it. So let me just go ahead and start this. Couple of things to note. So if I just hit go, it's going to give us a dry run. That's going to give us some statistics about what's going to happen. Here we can see there are going to be 99 images that are going to be captured in the area we specified. And also we have the little checkbox for cloud stitch. And let's uncheck the dry run and let's start the scan, and then we can talk about cloud stitch and what that brings to the table. So all I need to do is hit go. And hopefully the noise isn't going to be too loud. I think my headphones are not the greatest. But as you can see, I don't know if you're still on the screen share, but you notice the microscope is automatically moving slowly through the defined area and taking multiple images along the way.
Yeah, and maybe I can add a few things here. Is you see that there's like a little bit of an overlap, and that's so that this will make this a lot easier to stitch. And this is one of the trade-offs that you can play with. Do you want the scan to go faster, or do you want it to be easier to stitch? And what he set this to right now, the default, is what we found to be a really good happy medium to make this all piece together, which is the question we get a lot.
Right, and it's very conservatively tuned, so we can definitely go much faster. But right now we want to make sure things are always great, no problems, and so we go a little bit slower. We have a little larger overlap, but it guarantees great results every time.
Yeah, and the other thing I just wanted to touch on too, because you were talking about the different magnification settings. This particular model also does have a variety of lenses that you can kind of swap in and out. But just for this test right now, you had it set up in one very specific configuration. So there's also some trade-offs of like, hey, do you want to see a bigger area or do you want a higher resolution image?
Yes, and as you'll notice from the final image that we do capture, even at 1x magnification, it's really detailed. Like you can see the individual threads in the paper, which with the human eye isn't really visible. So we get some really really pretty images out of even the basic magnification level on these things. So
So
I think, sorry. What?
oh yeah, and then I just wanted to address, there was a question about like the imaging times there. So I think right now there's some settings for settling time related to vibration. I think that the exposure is not 1 second, but there's some tuning that we need to do on this to make it move faster from exposure to exposure. And this goes back to this was put in a very safe configuration as a default because sometimes people have like wobbly specimens or something like that, and so we wanted the default settings to always work. But we're going to give users some controls. So if, for example, you have something that you've bolted down to the stage and it's very stable, then you can go to a much higher performance mode or go boom, 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 boom. And for example, on something that's well tuned, we've seen around 2 images a second, for example, or that kind of order of magnitude for a very well tuned system. So hopefully that answers the question in the chat there.
Yeah, definitely. If people really care about throughput, this definitely can be tuned much, much faster. And, and also actually, since I asked, unfortunately, I don't see the chat, but since there was a question about this, one aspect of speed is capturing a lot of samples. So like assume if you're an entomologist, right, and you have a whole collection of these tiny little specimens that you want to capture, doing it by hand, one by one, manually, it's going to take you, weeks, months, years, right? But let's assume you have a tray, right? If you have, whether they're chips or whether they're, little bugs or stamps, right? If you have a known distribution, you can put your specimens in. We have APIs and batch processing where you can define different regions, and it just becomes a one-click go operation, right? So you put your tray in, click go, let the machine run. Once it's done, come back, swap out the tray, click go, and you're done, right? You saw what it took for me to just start a scan, and it was barely a minute or two, and that's fairly normal, So it's mostly machine time, and since we have such a big bed, that's one of our advantages, right? You can put a whole lot of specimens, just let it run, and you don't have to be bogged down babysitting this thing, making sure everything's done, set up, tear down time. That's all taken care of right here. So
yeah. And then there's another question from chat I want to address. It was regarding like how flat is this, and is it level enough that we can get away without like the active Z adjustment? So first, I think maybe you talked about it. You put like a retention clip down to help it a little bit, right?
Right, even simpler than that. It was just like a little 3D printed rectangle of plastic.
Yeah.
That's a little weight that it goes around the stamp. And that's because, the paper isn't flat, right? It's very old, it's very wavy. And if you were to take images across that, the stamp's not going to be in focus all the way through. So this kind of like settles the paper a little bit. Now, I'm doing that just to make my life easier because the stamp is somewhat flat. And so if I just, lay it down, it works pretty well. But for something that cannot be flattened that way, like, if you have a silicon die that's uneven, or you have specimens that kind of have a little depth to them, that's really hard, right? And usually it involves people going in and taking multiple images at different heights, and then, trying to stitch them all together and, get a full depth of field from them. And our software does that automatically. So you don't have to worry about that. You specify how many images you want, how far up and down you want them to move, and voila, it'll just do it automatically. So that's one of the many advanced features that we actually have out of the box.
Yeah, and I don't think we should dwell too much because this is a little more advanced, but the XY3P, which does have an active Z control, does help compensate if it's not quite even. And in fact, the latest versions of the software also, in fact, have an adaptive focusing system that's also tracking the focal plane as it goes and making adjustments. So there's actually this new mode that I'm quite excited about. So even if your sample was wavy up and down, the software is able to track that wave and keep shifting your image plane to match. Once again, very cool features, but out of scope for this video. It's just kind of a trade-off, though, of how many images you want to take versus how quickly you want the scan to progress. And hopefully we'll cover some of those modes in future videos. So
Right.
hopefully that answers your question.
And as you can tell, if you haven't heard already, the scan is done. So, it took about, I think, 3 to 4 minutes to scan. And
Nice.
it's because I checked that little box that says Cloud Stitch, it's automatically been sent up to the cloud. All those many images that were taken are going to get automatically stitched up and emailed back to me. And we can have a look. So I'm going to pull the turkey out of the oven right now. I had these scans done a little early in the day.
Maybe we could talk a little bit about why did we make Cloud Stitch? Because I think we've glossed over important of because people can use like Hugin and all ICE and all these software. But I just wanted to add for some context that stitching has been like a major pain point of this process for a lot of the people in like the chip reverse engineering community. There's a lot of these tools that kind of sort of work, but they're very high touch. And so one of the things that we're really hoping to do to make microscopy more accessible is make stitching so you're like, hey, look, just make it the other people's problem. And we've invested a lot of time into try to figure out, hey, if you take the microscope images, especially from our microscope, but other systems that also work, how do we reliably turn that into a large panoramic image? And that's where the Cloud Stitch software came from. It's just trying to make that a lot more of a seamless part of the experience. Yusuf, does that sound about right?
Yeah, I've spoken to a number of people who do this day in and day out, and they've been doing it for years, and they still hate the stitching process. Like, these are experienced people who know the different softwares out there and do this, and it's a pain. It really is. And it's fairly hard to do, depending on how you capture the images and the regularity of that. And that's one of the nice things about our automated scopes is it gives you really nice repeatable images and consistent images that stitching does well with. Also, just to touch to your point, right? Like, you don't have to use our scopes to take advantage of Cloud Stitch. We have the ability to upload files directly. You need maybe like one little configuration file, and you can send in your image tiles and have them stitched and email back to you. So it's something that if you have your own scope, if you have your own process that you'd like to use but still use Cloud Stitch, you can do that very easily.
Great. Well, thank you very much.
Great. So, I think now's a good time. How about I share my screen and kind of show you what we get out of this scan. Do you want to jump over to the screen share real quick?
So we have the microscope already up, so we can see this. Yep, we can still see this.
Okay. So yep. I switched to my email. As soon as the images are uploaded to Cloud Stitch will send you this email, just letting you know it's working on it and it's good to go, right? Usually it takes maybe 10 minutes, so 10, 15 minutes generally for a stitch to happen, depending on the size and complexity. Sometimes it's a little longer, but when it's done, you get the second email. And in this email, there are 2 little links. The first link gives you
just to clarify, you get one email that, hey, your stitch has started, just a confirmation that it's going through the system.
Yes.
And then a second email when it's complete. Okay, great.
Yes.
Just wanted to clarify.
And the second email has the links to this. So if you click on one of those links, you get the fully stitched image, as you can see right here. It's a high resolution image. I can zoom in. Hopefully this works. There you go, right?
Yep.
It's a
great.
It's a full high resolution image. But the second link in that same email is actually kind of interesting. The second link gives you a directory of images, directory of files, and those files give you a zoomable image. Basically, if you, go Go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say, we're working towards to give you something very similar. If you've seen Silicon Prawn or like Google Maps, these sort of zoomable ones, where you can take a look at this, preview it without setting up, without consuming a lot of bandwidth. Like if you're on a mobile device or something like that, you could check out, your 10 gigapixel scan, without just crashing your phone and taking up some stupid amount of bandwidth.
Yep, yep. And it's super easy to use. So like, as you can see, this is a browser window, but this is looking at the local files. All I did was, you get a zip file, you extract the files, click on the HTML page, and boom, you get this so that you can view locally. If you look, I can zoom in, and it's it's a full high resolution image. Very pretty stamp right there. And all you need to do to share this is either you share that directory to whoever you want, or you just dump it on the web server, and it's instantly a zoomable image on the web. So super easy, no real post processing that you need to do to get this feature out of it. So let me zoom out of this, and let's and of course we did vintage stamps, right? So we need a quick kind of like tidbit on stamps. These are fairly old stamps, and you'd think they'd be pretty valuable, but unfortunately most stamps are not worth much. They're maybe like a buck, couple of bucks each. And so it was actually surprising to me, like how not expensive old stamps are. Like you can actually buy the first stamp ever produced, which is the penny black, for like maybe $80. Yeah.
Yeah, but there are more expensive stamps that, like, hey, maybe if you wanted to do counterfeit detection or something like that, this could be a really valuable tool to go through your collection or something that you were going and say, hey, this is what I have. You can see this is in great condition, and really help, assess the value of your collection and maybe close a sale.
Yeah, no, and don't get me wrong, there are like very, very valuable stamps, and there are also a lot of fakes in the market, right? So, I'm just doing this because they're nice, pretty stamps, and it's 3 generations of collectors. I want to share it with the world, that alone has value. But also, there's value in appraising, doing, insurance appraisals. Maybe you want to sell them. Potential buyers are going to want, very high resolution images if they cannot get their hands on the item before they buy it. So it's got a lot of, this system's got a lot of potential, right? It's got potential across like just appraising collections to scanning like entomological samples. If you're an entomologist, maybe you want to do quality control on manufactured parts, like if you have high tolerances on CNC parts that you manufacture. If you want to do quality control, there are a lot of applications to this, and we automate the system and allow collecting large amounts of data and value from what you have, right? So it's easier to let this guy run for 8 hours on few tens of hundreds of samples versus having somebody sit there and image for hours and hours and hours and not even get an as good result from it, right?
Sounds good. Well, thank you very much for that demo. I think this may be a good time to kind of plug next week's video. Keep it short and sweet, unless you have any last thoughts on there.
No, I think that was it. I think we covered actually a lot of stuff today. But next week, I believe we're going to do the VM1 model, which is our value model. And it's actually pretty novel in terms of the features it carries, which is like a lot of features and at a really, really unexpected price point. Like I don't think there's anything close to this in the market, right, at that price point.
Yeah, and to give a contrast, so the microscope that we've demoed this week is a It is an inspection microscope, similar to what you'd use for soldering. Maybe you'd use this in your biology class for like dissecting or something like that. It uses so-called dark field illumination, where you illuminate from the side. This other model, I have one behind me. Maybe I could at least quickly point to for reference. This is a metallurgical microscope, and this is the model that we're going to show off next week. And we've done a lot of things to give this a very high value for the price point of this microscope. So stay tuned for next week. We'll show the newer release of this software, which has a lot more of these advanced features. We may not go through those advanced features, or at least all of them, in next week's video, but we'll start showing off some of those, the metallurgical features, and get you an idea of what sort of chips and whatnot a microscope like this, which is epi illuminated, can show you. So I think that's good then, unless, yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna just move my laptop real quick to give people kind of a little more detailed view of the setup here. I think they were unable to see it, but as you can see, I mean, it's a really, really large imaging bed, right? And this thing, we have a metallurgical model that's this size, and that does like full wafers in one go, right? Which is also fairly unique.
Yeah, we've been scanning 8-inch wafers on it, just to give you an idea. That like full 8-inch wafers, and no problem. So, yep. All right. I think that's good then. Yusuf, any last thoughts, or good close there?
Yeah, thank you very much for staying with us. It's been fun. Hope to see you next week.
All right, thank you, everyone. Take care, and please reach out if you have any questions. We're also just looking for feedback, talking to people about applications. So of course we want to sell you one, but we also just love microscopes, and we would just love to hear from people. So please reach out if you're interested.
And you can look us up at labsmore.com. We're going to have links to the images we scanned, as well as how you can contact us in the video description. So definitely please reach out. We are very, very happy to talk to people.
Great. Thanks. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thanks. Bye.